Welcome to our second video in our series on photosynthesis. In this video, we're going to take a closer look at the light reactions. Recall from our video overview of photosynthesis that in photosynthesis we take in light, carbon dioxide, and water to build sugars and release oxygen as a waste product. We said that photosynthesis occurs in two distinct sets of reactions, the light reactions and the Calvin cycle. In this video, we're going to focus on the details of the light reactions. Remember that the light reactions occur while all photosynthesis occurs inside the chloroplast, and specifically the light reactions are going to occur in the thylakoid membrane. In the thylakoid membrane, embedded in there, are two very important pieces of machinery: electron transport chains and photosystems. Electron transport chain is a series of enzymes embedded in the membrane. So we're going to draw it like this with membrane around it. And when electrons get passed down electron transport chains, energy is given off to make ATP. Kind of. We'll get back to that in a moment. Recall that our photosystems are clusters of photopigments embedded in the membrane that are really good at absorbing light energy, and when they do, electrons are boosted to a higher energy level. In the chloroplast we have two distinct photosystems, photosystem 1 or P700 and photosystem 2 or P680. These photosystems are also embedded in that thylakoid membrane, so we're going to draw them like this so we can see the membrane. Now there are two distinct pathways in the light reactions, the cyclic and the non-cyclic pathway. Let's start with the simpler pathway, the cyclic. And the cyclic pathway employs photosystem 1, P700. And when light strikes an electron in photosystem 1, that electron gets boosted to a higher energy level. This energized electron will bounce around the photosystem until it reaches a special chlorophyll A called the reaction center. When it reaches the reaction center, it can get picked up by an electron acceptor. The electron acceptor will deliver that electron to an electron transport chain. So it will carry it across to the electron transport chain. The electron will move down the electron transport chain in a series of oxidation reduction reactions or redox reactions, and as the electron moves down the electron transport chain, energy is given off to make ATP. By the time the electron gets to the end of the electron transport chain, it's no longer a high energy electron. It's going to return to P700. So we can see that it's getting back to where it began, so this is a cyclic pathway. Now notice I placed an asterisk here because this is a topic we're going to come back to later in terms of, we say that the electron goes down the ETC and energy is given off to make ATP, and that's kind of true, but there's a lot more detail, and that'll get its own video on photophosphorylation in terms of the process by which this ATP is made. Now, quick review of the cyclic pathway. What goes in? Well, light. What comes out? ATP. What machinery do you need? Photosystem 1 and electron transport chain. So the only product of the cyclic pathway is ATP. Now let's move on to the non-cyclic pathway of the light reactions. The non-cyclic pathway begins in photosystem 2 or P680, and when light strikes an electron in photosystem 2, an electron is boosted in energy. That electron will bounce around the photosystem until it reaches the reaction center, the special chlorophyll A. And at that point, it can get picked up by an electron acceptor. The electron acceptor will deliver the electron to an electron transport chain also embedded in the thylakoid membrane. The electron will move down this electron transport chain, and energy is given off to make ATP. When the electron gets to the end of the electron transport chain, it's no longer a high energy electron, and instead of returning to P680 like we might in a cyclic pathway, the electron drops into photosystem 1 or P700. Here it can get hit by light a second time and boosted to a higher energy level again. The electron will bounce around the photosystem until it reaches the reaction center, where it can get picked up by an electron acceptor. This electron gets delivered to another electron transport chain. The electron travels down this short electron transport chain, and when it gets to the end, while it's still a higher energy electron, it gets picked up by a molecule called NADP+, which also grabs a hydrogen and becomes NADPH. At this point, we have to recognize a problem. If we keep sending electrons from photosystem 2 through this system, through photosystem 1, through the system, and take them out in NADPH, and then send another and another and another, this photosystem is going to become deplete of electrons. And where did that H come from that we used to make NADPH? We need a source of electrons and we need a source of hydrogen. To get a hint, we need to go back here. Don't forget, in the light reaction, so far we've accounted for light coming in, we've made ATP, we've made NADPH, but we've not yet used water and we've not liberated oxygen. So, we need to add water. Water is used in light reactions. In a process called photolysis, water is split. And water split, it creates electrons, which can replenish P680, it liberates oxygen, and also produces hydrogen ions or protons. It might be easier to see if we draw it like this. The electrons from the water replenish the electrons lost from the photosystem to P680, so these electrons can go here. The O2 that's liberated is our waste product, and the hydrogen ions, or the protons, come over here and help us form NADPH. So let's review. Water is split through photolysis. An electron is donated to P680. That electron gets energized by light. And now it becomes a high energy electron. That high energy electron gets picked up by an electron acceptor, sent down an electron transport chain, where energy is given off to make ATP. This electron, now back at its ground state, drops in the photosystem 1, or P700, where it is once again energized by light. It's picked up by another electron acceptor and sent down a second short electron transport chain, at the end of which it combines with a molecule of NAD+, which also grabs a hydrogen, which we also got from water. Oops, let me grab this. There we go. This hydrogen, to become NAD+, or NADPH, I should say. So what's the machinery involved in the non-cyclic pathway? We need photosystem 2 and photosystem 1 and 2 electron transport chains. What goes into the non-cyclic pathway? Well, we need light and water as our reactants, and we produce ATP, NADPH, and oxygen. Recall from our overview that all of the products of the light reactions, except for oxygen, which is given off, go to the Calvin cycle to drive this set of reactions. And that's the subject of a later video. So go back and review the cyclic and the non-cyclic pathways. Write down any questions you have, bring them to class, and be prepared for a quiz. And remember to come back for part 3, where we're going to talk about how that ATP was made, photophosphorylation using chemiosmosis, the Calvin cycle. We'll go through the details of those series of reactions, and the alternative pathways of carbon fixation that we see in C4 and CAM plants.